Krishna. So we're moving into the later and more final verses of the Manah Siksa. Just to recap, the first verse is a developing the attraction and the focus on aspects that make up pure devotional service, and also things that are connected with Vrindavan, such as the cows, the brahmanas, the residents of Vrindavan, and the devotional practices such as the chanting of the holy name, the chanting of the Guru mantra, like that. So, and then Raghunath Das Goswami says, give up. If you want to really move into this mood of focusing on this, there should be no pride left. Pride, we heard all about that in the later verses. Second verse, just focus on pure devotional service. Don't try to elevate yourself or take time away from the devotional service to perform activities that may be pious by nature but simply have no real spiritual value in terms of our progress in devotional service. And then he also goes on to explain in the third verse. Let's see, the third verse is, and develop attachment for the youthful couple, and mentions some of the residents of Vrindavan, Srup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami. Then we heard from the Bhuta Bhavana for 5 verses on some of the entanglements that the living entity has to deal with due to the association of material energy, which are the enemies of the mind: lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy, and also fear. And then as it goes deeper, we get rid of those, but still there's another dog dancing anartha in our heart. She's a lady that eats dogs. She's called Maya, or she's called deceit. She associates with deceit, but what is she? She's Pratishta. The desire, all of these other anarthas are destroyed, but now there's this desire to become famous, which is they call it the last snare of Maya. That which holds the living entity to this material world, still wanting some reciprocation for their achievements in spiritual life. In other words, I should be honored, I should be glorified, I should be respected. But what does Lord Chaitanya say? Nadanam. No, he says, Tranadapi sunidchena tayorivasa sahishnuna. Amani namamanadena kirtaniya sadarahi. He said, if you want to really chant the holy name, you have to give up this idea that you are actually worshipable. You have to give complete respect and honor to others, either in the mind or in action, and then at the same time not look for anything for yourself. We find it's easy to give respect to others, as devotees are nice people, so they like to respect others. But to not want respect for yourself, that's a tough one. Because you say, I give respect, I'm nice, I should also be respected. Lord Chaitanya says, don't think about it. If it comes, that is by way of the Lord's arrangement. If it doesn't come, it doesn't affect our devotional mentality. We're not dependent on receiving anything, but only giving. Well, we will all naturally receive by giving, but one should not look to receive anything, but the opportunity. Give up mundane talks. Don't think about Vaikuntha and Lakshmi Narayan, but serve the jewel of one's own heart, Radha Krishna and Vrindavan. These are all of the preceding verses. And if you want to get rid of the anarthas, cry out to Krishna, not just call out, but cry out to the killer of Baka. Bakasura represents deceit. Okay. Then we heard, And Raghunath Das Goswami uses some strong language to really make his point of how one's attachment to anything material is no better than donkey urine. Hare Krishna. Don't bathe in donkey urine. Bathe in the nectar of Krishna, the light of Krishna consciousness in the process of devotional service. The three kinds of persons, two kinds of householders, ones who are actually pious and work simply for pious activities, and those who are actually devotees, but still they also have certain material tendencies, and also the pitfalls of the sannyas order, those who are in the renounced order of life. So it goes on. Then we start to move into the mood of Vrindavan again, coming back with verse number 8, which we heard yesterday from. And he says, with pleasing words, worship Sri Giridhari here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Out of all the places for worship, it says Mathura is wonderful, but higher than Mathura is the forest of Vrindavan. And higher than the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan. And the most sacred of all places within Govardhan is Radhakund. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he aspires to live at the feet of Govardhan and serve Govardhan. And where is his Bhajan Kutir? It's in Radhakund. If you've been there, you'll see they have a constant kirtan that's been going on for how many years? How long is that kirtan going on with Raghunath Das Goswami's bhajan?
500 years now.
500 years continuously. It doesn't stop 24 hours a day. You can go there. Usually, sometimes there's 1 or 2 or 5, sometimes more people chanting, but the kirtan continues. Now we go into the mood of Vrindavan again. So we can chant the verse. It's on the board, number 9. I really am not so attuned to the particular melody, so I'm going to not try to make a fool of myself by trying to do it. So I'm going to chant the prayer that we use for Brahma Samhita. Marishvanatave Rajavi Panchandra Vrajavane Swarim Tanata Vautaru Atula Sakti Vetula Litam Vishaka Siksali Vitarana Guru Tvav Priya Saro Girindro Tar Priksa Lalita Rati Dwadvam Smaramanaha Smaramana. O mind, meditate on Raja Vipina Chandram, Krishna, the moon of the Vrindavan forest, Marisha Natave, as the Lord of my leader and controller, Sri Radhika, Vrajavana Ishvari, Sri Radha, the queen of the Vraja forest, Tannatave, as his dearest object of love, Tu Lalitam, and Lalita, Tad Atula Sakive, as the incomparable friend, Vishakam, Vishaka, Siksali Vitaranam Gutave, as the foremost guru distributing the teachings of love. Priya Sara Gira Indro, Radhakund and Govardhan, Tad Preksha Lalita Rati Datve, as giver of the sight and love of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Translation. And again, he addresses his mind. O mind, meditate on Krishna, the moon of Vrindavan forest, as the Lord of my leader, Sri Radhika. Meditate on Sri Radhika as the most dear object of love. Meditate on Sri Lalita as her incomparable friend. Meditate on Vishaka as the foremost guru distributing the teachings of love. And meditate on Radhakund and Govardhan as givers of the sight and love of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So here in this verse, Magyantamidandasya Ginajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadhi Pastyatya Desatarine Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Peepacha Kriptanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. So after we say getting rid of, destroying all of the anarthas, now we're more in the proper development of consciousness where we can accept this type of meditation as being natural and more easier. And what is this verse saying? What is Raghunath Dasko saying? He's saying, concentrate, meditate, transform into a meditation your concentration. On who? On Krishna, who is the Lord of Radharani. There's a terminology called Radhanath, which means the Lord of Radharani. But then there's a problem with the Brijabasis, especially the Varsanabasis. They don't consider the name Radhanath to be the Lord of Radha. They consider the name Radhanath as Radha, who is Lord. So though if you know the mood of the internal, or we saying the intimate associates of Radharani, they see her. They see Krishna, he's okay. We like him because Radharani likes him. But Radharani is our focus. And of course, that's Manjari Bhav, those who are the assistants of Radharani, who are some of our key acharyas in the present sampradaya, and that is Rupa Goswami. He is the chief amongst the associates and servants of Radharani. He's Rupa Manjari. And then his assistant is Raghunath Das Goswami, who is actually Rati Manjari. And there are so many beautiful prayers, both by these two great intimate associates of Radharani in glorification of Srimati Radharani. So meditate on Krishna as the Lord of Radha. Meditate on meditate on Radha, who is very dear to Lord Krishna. Meditate on Lalita, who is her incomparable friend. So Lalita doesn't tolerate anything that may even slightly cause any disturbance to Sri Radharani. Even when Krishna causes disturbance to Radha, he gets chastised by Lalita. And she is fiery. Wow. If you know a little bit about Lalita, she goes right to the point. You rascal. She'll tell him straight. For instance, Radharani is waiting for Krishna. Krishna had promised to meet Radharani. And she's waiting, and he's not coming. And she's becoming more and more unhappy. Where is he? He's not coming. And then Lalita comes and she can see that Radharani's disturbed, and then she asks, and Radharani says, "Where's Krishna?" "I'll find him." So she goes, and she knows where he is. She goes to the opposing camp, which is Candramauli's place. There are right ring gopis and left wing gopis. The right ring gopis are what we say in line with Krishna. In other words, they're very obedient and loving to Krishna, in the mood of surrendering to Krishna. The left-wing gopis also surrender to Krishna, but they're also contrary. They get angry at Krishna. If he does something that they don't like, he gets some chastisement. But the thing is, this is not what we can see in the material world as some disturbance. This chastisement is another form of love. Because Krishna likes to get chastised by those who love him. Because he sees it as another form of love, which it actually is. So don't try to chastise Krishna unless you actually have pure love for Krishna. So, Lalita finds him in the camp of Candramauli, and she says, "Oh, there you are. You have made my Priya, my mistress, my master, very angry." So then she runs, and Krishna realizes he's in trouble. So he's following behind, trying to make up for not being there. And then Radharani reaches the point, that's it. Doesn't matter if he comes anymore. He's going to get it. So now he's there, and he realizes, oh, he should have been there, of course. See, Krishna has a problem. God has a problem. Everybody loves him, and he likes to reciprocate everyone's love. So even the gopis, who are, there's so many gopis, and they all want to have loving relationships with Krishna. So he takes time out for that. And sometimes Radharani's okay with that. But when she makes an appointment with him and he's not there, ooh. So he's coming, and now she turns her back, doesn't want to look at him. He's trying to apologize and give some excuse. She doesn't want to hear it. So when she walks away, Lalita chastises him even further. Now Krishna's stuck. She goes home, she takes her bird cage, which is blue, reminds her of Krishna. She throws it. The Jamuna, she don't want to see that because it's also blue. Hare Krishna. This is loved beyond. And she also has a blue sari, that's gone. And now Krishna doesn't know what to do. So he goes, he's thinking, what can I do? So then he says, oh, I'll go to Vrinda, because Vrinda, she's also the CEO in Vrindavan. She makes arrangements for Radha and Krishna's meetings. So he says to Vrinda, this is the situation. Get me back with Radharani. All right, I'll come up with a plan. So she says, well, Radharani is not happy now. And so you dress up as a lady. Now Krishna is beautiful, so he can easily do that. And you go, and we'll introduce you as a fortune teller. And you come, and you present yourself, and then we'll announce that this lady has come to see what is Radharani's fortune, because we know she's not happy. Okay? So Radharani's with a small group of her associates, and Krishna is dressed up as this lady, sari, everything's there, bindi, mendi, it's all there. And Krishna comes, and all the girls say, ooh, who's this new gopi? We never seen her. She's very beautiful. And then, who are you? Well, I heard that Radharani's not happy, and I'm a fortune teller, so I'm going to give her her fortune, which will help her to get out of her unhappiness. Okay, everybody gets excited. Radharani's she's not so excited, but she thinks, all right. So he goes, and he knows how to read her feet, because he can also, the fortune people, they can read the lines on the feet, especially the residents of Vrindavan. So he's holding her feet, and he says, yeah, I can see the problem. Oh, what is it? Well, you should forgive Krishna. Radharani looks around and says, where does this fortune teller come from? She has no knowledge. Get her out of here. So Krishna runs away in the form of this gopi, goes back to Vrinda and says, you have another plan? So she says, don't worry, we have many plans. She said, now you dress up as a sannyasi. So he gets it's a little different kind of dress. He looks more like Shiva than a sannyasi. He's got a drum, and he's got some leopard skin. And he comes again, after some time, into the circle of the ladies, and Radharani's there. And the lady, oh, wow, a sannyasi. Wow, let's get some blessing. So the sannyasi comes, Radharani thinks, oh yeah, I need some blessings. So, can you give us blessings? Oh yes, that's why I've come. Really? But I have to give blessings to Radharani first, because she needs it more than everyone. Radharani's blessing the whole world. So he goes, and he says, yes, I can see the problem. The problem is, she's missing Krishna. And then Radharani thinks, you can't refuse a sannyasi, that's an offense. Remember that. Scratch that from the recording. So, and then Radharani, and then she accepts Krishna back. So it takes Vrinda to do it, because Vrinda knows all of the ins and outs of Radharani's love. So yeah, so we meditate on these pastimes of the Lord, which take us into the mood of Vrindavan more and more, and of the qualities, and of the personalities that also illustrate these different qualities. Like, In Rupa Goswami's Mukunda Muktavali's Stava, he exemplifies this instruction. Describe and ask to picture in the mind Krishna along with his associates. Shri Radha is one of the dearest queens of Vrindavan, And that's illustrated by Raghunath Das Goswami as he writes his beautiful love expressions in the form of a treatise called Vilapa Kusumanjali. She is his master, and he serves her, and he begs for her mercy. She is the best of all lovers. Lalita, as the matchless, dear, close and intimate friend of Srimati Radharani. And all of the acharyas, they give many, many glorifications of Lalita, especially her good quality of dancing. She's an expert dancer, and she likes to dance for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. The gopis, they're the friends of Radharani. And the Manjaris are more or less the intimate associates of Radharani. They have more time with Radharani and have access to Radharani than her friends. Because she worships her friends as being, superior to her. But in order to accept the love and the service, she accepts it from the Manjaris. So the acharyas explain in our sampradaya, we're aspiring for Manjari Bhav. That is the mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And that's the mood of Lord Chaitanya also. The Manjaris, they're always absorbed in pleasing Srimati Radharani. They don't have much contact with Krishna unless Radharani tells them to do it. Otherwise, they are simply satisfied serving Srimati Radharani. Their whole focus in their devotion is simply focused on Srimati Radharani. When Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India, he met one great personality named Ramananda Roy. And many of the associates of Lord Chaitanya actually appeared as many of the eternal residents of the spiritual world. Ramananda Roy was Vishaka. Sarup Damodar Goswami was actually Lalita. So you see, during the very end of Lord Chaitanya's Leelas, he was in 3 states of consciousness. One is called external consciousness, where he would perform his normal activities. The other one was internal consciousness, where he'd go deep into the mood of the residents in Vrindavan, because as we know, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi. So in that mood, many times, he would go so deep that he was staying in one place called the Gambhira. You can go to that temple today, and there's a room where Lord Chaitanya stayed. But they had locked him in that room because he used to go mad in ecstasy. In order to prevent him from leaving, but he was so determined to leave, sometimes he would climb the wall in that room. There was like a wall, and he would go over the wall and just run towards Govardhan or something he thought was Govardhan. It's like one time he saw, was it Pantaka? It was a sand dune on the beach of Jagannath Puri, and he was running towards it thinking it was Govardhan Hill. When he got near it, he fell and went into unconsciousness. The devotees came and couldn't find him. Then they realized they had to look, and they looked everywhere, and they were searching. They followed Sarup Damodar, who's Lalita, because Lalita knows exactly where Lord Chaitanya is, because Lalita is in the mood of serving intimately Lord Chaitanya, who is also now in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So when they found him, they woke him up out of his situation. At first they couldn't wake him up because he was so deep in meditation. They all started to chant Hare Krishna. And then they started chanting it louder and louder and louder and louder. And finally the Lord broke his meditation. And he said, why did you bring me here? And I was on the banks of the Jamuna, and I was with all of my friends, and Krishna was there, and we were about to bathe in the Jamuna, and now I'm here. And he got angry. He got angry. So that was his mood. His mood was to go deep into that. And so it was difficult. But the two persons who stayed with him through that whole time was Ramananda Roy, who was Vishaka, and Srup Damodar Goswami, who was Lalita. No one else would have that association with Lord Chaitanya when he went into those moods. And they would also sing the glories of Krishna, the glories of Vrindavan, the glories of the residents of Vrindavan, and the Lord would go into ecstasy. So this particular verse is really directing our attention to these personalities who are very dear to Krishna, who are residents in Vrindavan. And there's prayers. The acharyas give a whole series of prayers on each of these personalities to show how they are glorified in different ways. There's prayers for Lalita Astakam, and there's also prayers for Vishaka, who is considered Prem Guru. She is the personification of loving relationships in the mood of Vrindavan. So each of the intimate associates of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan have a particular service, and they perform that service in the mood of loving relationships. So this particular verse is just focusing on our attention on these personalities. Also in this verse, I think Radhakund is also mentioned. Radhakund sits at the base of Govardhan. There's Radhakund and Shyamakund. Actually, to attain the state of consciousness where one qualifies to end the world in that level is the highest state of consciousness. And that's given by Srila Rupa Goswami, especially in his Upadeshamrita. He glorifies Radhakund as the highest. How many have been to Radhakund? Wow, mostly everybody. I remember many years ago we were there, and His Holiness Sachinandana Maharaj we were doing parikrama and we met him at Radhakund. It was interesting. And he encouraged us to it was evening time, and he said we should all go bathe in Radhakund. So I had never done it before. But he spent about a half hour just preparing our consciousness in such a way that we would understand that it's not simply going into Radhakund. Because what happened earlier when Srila Prabhupada was here, Prabhupada also brought his disciples to Radhakund. And what they did, they jumped in and started splashing around like it was like some place to play. Prabhupada he was like Hiranyakashipu. No, he was like Nrsingadev. He was so angry. He was so angry. And the devotees got the message. And then after that, he said, nobody goes into Radhakund. But he did that just to make a point. But we can understand you can go into Radhakund. You take 3 drops, at least 3 drops of water on your head. You offer prayers to Radhakund. You beg for Radharani's mercy. And those who know, don't touch Radhakund with their feet first. Because to approach the supreme bathing place of Radharani with your feet is considered to be an offense. So one has to enter. Your feet will get in there, no doubt. but you don't go with your feet first. That's the whole thing. So we went that night and we stayed, and the water was very, very cold. But when you're in there, you don't think in terms of cold. And you just sit there and offer prayers to Radharani. And usually it's just individual prayers. Of course, Maharaj also instructed us on how we should pray and what is the mood. And you usually stay up to your neck and offer prayers. And you can experience something, some transformation in consciousness when you're there. It happens automatically. And we stayed in for about a half hour, maybe a little longer. Came out, and everyone was on a different level. So this is permissible and also encouraged that we go, especially during the time of Bahulasmi, which is the time when Radhakund was created. It's a beautiful pastime that illustrates that time where it's a long pastime. Krishna was in Vrindavan, and Kamsa was sending so many demons into Vrindavan, and one of them was a bull. His name was Arista. And this bull was huge. And his tail, when he hold it straight up, would touch the clouds. And he came charging into Vrindavan. And when his hooves were hitting the ground, it was causing miscarriages to anyone who had babies. And the whole ground was shaking. Krishna saw what was about to happen. He was with his friend. He was leaning on his shoulder. They were holding one flower. Krishna gave him the flowers. And then when he came, Krishna grabbed him by the horns and just tore them around and threw him. And Vishtasura got back up again and came charging even more angry. And then Krishna picked him by the horns, but this time he dusted him off with his lotus feet. For the devotees, the lotus feet of the Lord is so sweet and full of love, and it's just like the softest thing you can't imagine how soft his feet are. But when he's killing demons, that's like thunderbolts hitting the demon's head. So he's kicking this demon, and he lost his life. That night, Krishna was supposed to meet Radharani. Radharani said, "Not tonight." "Why?" "You killed a cow." "He was a demon." "Still, he was a cow." "So you're supposed to be Gopal, huh?" So he got some chastisement. So he didn't. And then Krishna said to Radharani, "Well, now you're siding with a demon." So they were going back and forth. So Radharani says, "All right, but you have to purify yourself." How would I purify myself? What is that? "Well, you have to go traveling to all the holy places and bathe there." Krishna said, "I'm not leaving Vrindavan." So in his mind, he called all the holy places, and with his feet, he dug a hole, and then he asked the holy places. They all came in their personified form, and then he said, "Fill this area," and that became Shyamakund. And then he bathed, and then he said, "Now I'm purified, but you're still contaminated because you sided with a demon. So you have to bathe in my waters too." She said, "I'm not bathing in your waters. They're contaminated because you were..." So she said, "I'll make my own." So she called over her gopis, and they took off their bangles and started digging. And they kept digging. And then Krishna allowed all of the holy places to come into her home, and that filled, and that became Radhakund. And then that's Radhakund. So Radhakund and Shyamakund happened during that time. We celebrated in October, but actually it's not October. That's a mistake. That was actually brought out. It's in April. It's around this time. Yeah? Correct? Yeah. So And of course, the celebration means people go from all the great souls and others come and bathe at midnight and at Radhakund. And that's very ceremonious to bathe at that particular time. So yeah, Radhakund and Shamakund. And Govardhan, he's the bestower of sublime love to the divine couple, their lotus feet. Radhadass Goswami, in his Govardhan Vasa Partana Dasakam, he glowered. So what is that mantra? Namaste Girirajaya Govardhan Dari Namine Ashesha Klesha Dasaya Paramananda Daine. Yeah, so we chant that mantra, glorifying Shri Giridhari. Giridhari is Haridas Varya. That means he is the best of all devotees. Why? Because he provides cooling caves for Radha and Krishna to meet in, green grasses for the cows to eat, vegetables and many kinds of herbs that provide food for the residents of Vrindavan. And also there's ponds and other places where people bathe. So Govardhan is considered the best. Who is Govardhan? Before Krishna came to the material world, he, at least it's explained in this way, that he wanted to, actually Govardhan is an expression of Krishna's love for Radha. So Govardhan is a manifestation of the heart of Krishna. That's why it says Govardhan is none different than Krishna, because it was his love. So he manifested that love in the form of this huge mountain, which was 60 miles high and sometimes 40 miles around. But then Govardhan was cursed. But the curse was actually a benediction, because Govardhan is an eternal associate of the spiritual world. So that curse was to reduce the size of Govardhan. Was it one mustard seed every day? Every day. And then Govardhan and Jamuna, you'll see they're gradually, you can't see it, but they're gradually disappearing from our vision. And that's part of the Leela, to bring them back to the spiritual world, ultimately. Okay, so these are, and those who do the Govardhan Parikram, if you have, how many of you done Govardhan Parikram? Whoa, we got so many wonderful Brijabasis here. So, yeah. This year, Radhanath Swami is doing his yatra in Govardhan. Starts on the 20th of October and goes for a week. So if you are inclined, which you should be, please come for that Govardhan Yatra. That'll be 7 days in the Govardhan area, which will include parikram and other activities. So these are the places that are very dear to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Radharani, she gave the name to Govardhan as Haridas Vaya. The Vedas say you, Govardhan, are the tilak decoration on the land of Raj. Like Radhankund, Govardhan is the giver of sight and love for Srimati Radharani. That's why Raghunath Das Goswami wanted to leave the world in the area of Govardhan in his prayers and meditation. So, yeah. So I think okay, these are some, there's a lot more. And this describes the identity of Raghunath Das Goswami as Rati Manjari. In his work, Vilapa Kusumanjali is famous in describing When Vaidhi Bhakti transmutes into Raga Bhakti, which is actually the goal of devotional service, as Lord Chaitanya says, devotional service that is imbued with rules and regulations don't attract me. Now he's also teaching that mood. We talked about that as the essence of the discussion that centers around this particular presentation, the external activities of devotional service and the internal moods that they're meant to develop. Without developing the internal moods, the external will only reach a certain level. One has to go deeper into the external activities which help awaken the internal moods. What are those moods? The natural proclivities of the soul's love for the Lord. And that starts to awaken at a certain level of bhakti. Usually in the higher stages of bhakti, when the devotee comes to the stage that leads ruchi, Adalshara Saru Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, and Artha Nirvritti Nishta Ruchi. In each of these stages have symptoms. So on the stage of ruchi, what is that? Prasanatma Nasoshati Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nasoshati Nakongshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Lav Bhakti Lavate Baham Mad Bhakti Lavate Param, which means that a devotee is always joyful. Always joyful. And Prabhupada used to say, if you're not happy, you're in Maya. I mean, right to the point. Well, I'm not happy. Become happy. How do I do that? Serve the devotees. That's how you do it. Serve those great, serve all devotees, but serve this mood, these devotees, by glorifying these residents in Vrindavan and make them the object of your meditation and prayers. Then you'll become happy, like that. Okay, so there's a lot more here, but time is... So we can open it up for a little discussion on this particular subject matter, the meditation on, and the glorification, and the focus on these. It mentions three, at least four: Govardhan, Lalita, Vishaka, Radharani, and also Krishna. Any comments or questions? I knew I wouldn't get too much for this one. Yes, Radha Vinodini.
I was really amazed by this class because this is so... Hare Krishna, so thank you very much. I was really amazed by this class because this is such a sweet topic. However, my difficulty is that I really think that I'm so far from this level that I'm not sure if I can properly understand it. And I was wondering that what should be the approach of what should be our approach for approaching Radha Krishna pastimes?
Going deeper into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Perfecting your chanting. Freeing yourself from the offenses that we mentioned this morning to the holy name. The holy name will gradually bring one closer into this mood. And service to the Vaishnavas. We develop that mood, just like we had some devotees who took some time out just to cook for tonight for the devotees. They like to serve the devotees. And when you like to serve the devotees, that's a quality you want. Not just, I should serve the devotees because they say it's a good idea and I get some benefit. No. Yeah. Actually develop that mood. Because we can't get away from the mood of service. That's intrinsic in our existence. If we're not serving devotees or something in relationship to Krishna, we'll be serving something in the relationship to the external energy. So focus your attention on devotees and also on the mood of devotion for these great personalities that were mentioned. You could chant these prayers. We have a whole, it's all mentioned here in this, the Lalita Astakam. 8 prayers in glorification of Sri Lalita. Yes. I can read a few of them. I offer obeisances to Lalita Devi, who is extremely expert due to her excellent qualities. Out of her elevated and intimate feelings of love, she wipes away glistening drops of perspiration from the lotus feet of Radha Mukunda. I offer obeisances to Lalita Devi, who is extremely expert due to her excellent qualities. Her beautiful face defeats the brilliance of the rays of the full moon, and her eyes are ever restless like those of a startled doe. She is famous for an extraordinary proficiency in the art of dressing Radha, of whom she is an expert service. And that's just, I read 2 of the verses, so there's 8 verses like that. We can chant these prayers, and we start developing the consciousness of that personality, and then we start going, because they are connected to Vrindavan, so they bring us into that mood of Vrindavan by glorifying them, speaking about them, like that.
Can I just ask something connected to this one? Because you mentioned the desire for serving the devotees, and I have one certain difficulty in it, that in some circumstances, this desire comes forward, but for example, when I'm not familiar with the place, with the situation, then because I'm not sure how I can manage, somehow this desire is not so much there. So for example, when I'm at home with devotees whom I know, it's much easier to develop this mentality. And how can this be? How can this manifest for every situation?
Devotees have different natures. Some devotees are more extroverted in their activities, and others are more introverted. You're more introverted. Extremely. But that's a good quality for bhakti. But in the association of devotees, there are different ways you can serve. Just like in a general sense, just like if you can just take up the mantle of serving prasadam during the times. That would be serving devotees. Or you could just speak to devotees and talk about something spiritual. Or just develop a relationship. And then once you feel more comfortable, then Krishna will give you more and more ideas.
Thank you very much. This is really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. You had a question? Yeah, so...
I just, you said during Govardhan Parikrama, and then you stopped. I didn't get what you said. You said something about doing Govardhan Parikrama, but I didn't get what you said after that.
What did I say after Govardhan Parikrama?
The benefit of it.
I don't know.
I think you were about to say it, but then something else happened.
You can ask the devotees who do it. So I don't remember if there was anything that I was supposed to say after that. I mentioned that Radhanath Swami is having a yatra on Govardhan this year. So I encourage the devotees to come if they could. That means you have to register, but yeah. Lord Chaitanya encourages devotees to go to holy places. In fact, it's mentioned, now this is, you might think this is a little extreme, but it says all the devotees who are followers of Lord Chaitanya should visit every holy place that he went. It says that. Now, is that possible? I mean, he traveled throughout South India and went to hundreds of places. Vishnu temples, Nrsimha temples, places of Lord Shiva, and his footprints are even placed in 29 different places around India, places he went. And also he went to places in Bangladesh also. So going to holy places is actually the activities of a serious Vaishnava. We should take time to go to these holy places. Not that, well, you know, we read about them and we hear about them. That's nice. And that's also recommended. But going there, there's an experience. And you get purified. Holy places are meant for purification, for transcendental knowledge, for Krishna conscious association. Anyone else? Did you have a question? Yeah, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I really like the point about these two camps, and that we should aspire about Manjari Bhav, right? So
well, yeah, and maybe it's not as easy as you mentioned it.
yeah. I just want to ask
There's a whole... Once you qualify yourself to move into Raganuga Bhakti, first you have to qualify to get to there. Once you get there, then there's a whole sadhana that comes with that attainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question, I just
It's
wanted
not
to
that
ask,
easy.
Yeah, because, you know, sometimes, especially in Slovenia, but when we have a Holy Name festival, and then we sing Maha Mantra, but then some devotee likes to also, after 3 hours, sing Radharani's name to also, so that's being chastised. So is it because we don't know about the philosophy?
We can say, we can chant Radharani's name once or twice, but Prabhupada shut it down every time. And he said, you know, those who understand a little bit about Radharani don't really, just like we have the example of Sukadeva Goswami when he was narrating Bhagavatam, he doesn't even mention her name, although he is an intimate associate of Radharani. The reason why, there was 2 reasons why he didn't mention her name. One is because of his deep love for Radha, and therefore he wouldn't be able to recite. He would go into ecstasy just thinking of her name. And the other reason was there were so many sages and tapasis and other various personalities who came to see, you know, Maharaj Parikshit. But he could understand they weren't qualified to even hear her name. I mean, Radharani, nobody can understand. Even Krishna's having a hard time. I don't want to get into the intimate act, but basically, her love is not known to anybody, not even Krishna. He becomes Lord Chaitanya just to find out what it's like. I mean, sometimes we sing some bhajans, Radharani ki jai, Maharani ki jai, Varsana Bali ki jai, jai, jai. But we don't really make kirtans out of Radharani's name. Is that the Vaikuntha police? It's the fire of bhakti, huh? Burning all of the ignorance. So yeah, there was one time that I know for sure, this was here in France, and Prabhupada was here in one kirtan year, he was quite good. He started going into Radha Kirtan. Prabhupada immediately sent word, stop him.
5 minutes and then it's finished.
Okay.
Guru Maharaj, thank you again for this particular session. My question is about Manjari Bhav. Till now, I had always heard only about Gopi Bhav. This is the very first time I'm hearing about Manjari Bhav, and that we are encouraged to cultivate this mood of Manjari Bhav. So, where can we read more about this?
It comes from the writing of the Goswami, especially Rupa Goswami. And also Raghunath Das Goswami, who are both in that same mood. All of our acharyas, Kamala Manjari is Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Who else? Bhakti Siddhanta is Nayanana Manjari. Yeah, you see. Mostly all of our acharyas are in the mood of manjaris.
Thank you.
It's not that, I didn't say you have to cultivate that, but once one qualifies themselves to move into the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, there's a whole sadhana that comes with that, and that's part of it also. And that's illustrated by Shivaram Maharaj in his book, where he says, further information regarding spontaneous devotional service. He's been focusing, because sometimes people think that anyone who goes in that direction is sahaja, pretense. But actually it's Lord Chaitanya's desire that everyone comes, because ultimately you can't come to the stage of prema unless you come to the mood of spontaneous attraction for Krishna. And there's a way to awaken that once it starts to develop at a seedling stage. But there are people today who claim to be sadhus who teach that, but they don't even discriminate who they teach it to. And that's the fallacy of the whole thing. People have to be qualified to be able to move into that. And that qualification comes by your spiritual master. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, we have a little break, and then we'll go back and do the next verse, which is, again, in the mood of Vrindavan. Okay, thank you, and take, was 5-minute break?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. Don't get lost.